Hello, my name's Stuart. I'm the unrepentant atheist. Welcome back to yet another video on the subject of atheism. So today we're going back to basics and talking about the argument by popularity, or argument ad populum, to be more formal about it. So I do believe that probably most of us at some point in our lives have been persuaded that because so many people believe in something, it must make it true. And it depends on how far you go back, though, as to how gullible you are to this particular argument. So from my point of view, I probably have to go back to childhood. When I was growing up and I was going to school and we were singing hymns and the headmaster was standing at the front of the assembly reading passages from the Bible and telling us how we've got to be good, otherwise, you know, God and the devil, etc., and how we should turn the other cheek, how we should be charitable, and this sort of respectability of the headmaster telling us all this, and going to church, and everybody around seeming to believe. At the time, there was no need for me to seek evidence beyond the fact that lots of people believed it. There was a sacred book called the Bible. And obviously in my childish mind, I just didn't question it at all. I just thought, well, it must be true. So cracks start to appear in that immature way of thinking, irrational and fallacious way of thinking. When you're young, as you get older, you start to see that, you know, a lot of people can believe something and it can still be wrong. For example, I know a lot of people that when I was a teenager growing up, I realized fairly quickly that there was nothing in astrology. I looked into astrology, and to me it looked very unscientific. It didn't seem to have any evidence to back it up. I mean, I'm not saying, oh, it seemed to me that astrology wasn't true. Actually, to be honest with you, initially, yes, but I realized that wasn't a rational way to come about. Even at that age, I realized it wasn't rational to reach a conclusion about astrology, that it just seemed to me that it wasn't true, because, you know, how could it be that the position of the stars in the sky relate to your character and all the decisions in life you're going to take could be affected by the way the stars line up. And so, although that seemed to me, without seeking evidence, that was not the case, yet lots of people believed it. My mother believed it. You know, I knew lots of people that believed in astrology. Yet it wasn't enough. When it seemed to me that it wasn't true, I had to go out and do an investigation, and I did investigate it. I read around a bit, and I realized I was looking for evidence. Okay, astrology, I know what the assertions are, I know what the claims are, but where is the actual evidence? And I couldn't find any evidence that actually astrology was true. It wasn't counted as a science, and it didn't really seem to have any proper academic or evidential backup, apart from anecdotal evidence, and my mother going through the newspaper, finding her star sign and reading out and saying, oh yeah, that's me, that's just like me, and finding my star sign and saying, oh, you're a Virgo, so yeah, you know, you're great with attention to detail, you know, you tend to be a bit on the serious side, etc., saying, oh yeah, you're definitely a Virgo. I mean, apart from sort of silly flimsy anecdotal evidence like that, or, you know, my mum was a Leo, and she, you know, whatever, did exactly what a Leo would have done, and to me that didn't look like proper evidence. It didn't look scientific. It looked to me like kind of lucky rabbit's foot, or, you know, irrational belief in superstition. So that was me as a teenager, dismissing, you know, in a fairly rational way, not just because I felt that it wasn't true, but I actually went out and looked for proper evidence and couldn't find any. So I dismissed it, despite the fact that a lot of people believed in astrology at that time. We're talking about the 70s. Actually, a lot of people still believe in astrology, oddly enough, but then again, a lot of people still believe in God. And so I went from not believing in astrology to questioning my other beliefs. And of course, I came to the belief in God. And, you know, I came back to this thing. A lot of people believe it. It's got so much respectability about it. You know, the nation is kind of founded on it, and Christianity seems to be the predominant religion in the developed world, and surely so many intelligent people couldn't be wrong. So I pondered on that for a little while, and I realized that I was appealing to large numbers of people believing in something necessarily make it true. I realized was false, and I looked back to my experience with astrology. I thought, well, if they can be wrong about astrology, then maybe they're wrong about God. How could it be then that Christianity in particular has developed to this extent that we've got it as our state religion, we've got the Queen as the defender of the faith. You know, a lot of what we've got in our society seems to be founded on Christianity, which it's starting to look to me like, you know, God may not exist. But how could it be that over the centuries that so many people believe in it, and yet it's not true? And I only had to look at my template, which was astrology, that here we have a belief which has persisted throughout the ages, and which a lot of people still cling to, despite there's no real proper evidence for it, no, you know, convincing proper scientific evidence. And that's when I became aware of some philosophers, atheistic philosophers, who were quite rationally dismissing God as a hypothesis and their reasons for it. I started reading around a bit and thought, well, you know, maybe the Bible is just, it's an old book. How do we know that what's in it is true? But coming back to this thing about argument ad populum, in those days when I was 15, 16, I dismissed religion. I didn't have that knowledge of the terminology, but I was effectively dismissing the God hypothesis based on lack of evidence, and that the argument ad populum was not convincing to me because I'd already seen that it was a fallacy through astrology. So no matter how many people believe something, and even now, if everybody on the internet turned around, if all the big atheists, Richard Dawkins, a whole lot of them, were suddenly appearing in the newspapers, converting to Christianity, and people that I know who don't believe suddenly turn around and say, actually, Stuart, you know, there's a God. It wouldn't make any difference to me, because I wouldn't be looking at them for evidence. I'd be looking at the actual evidence. I'd be saying, well, what's convinced you? Where is your evidence? And they'd be saying to me, well, you know, I mean, everybody believes it, so it must be true. And then I would just point back to my astrology example, or other examples where a lot of people believe something which turned out actually not to be true. Like flat Earth, for example. If you go back far enough, you'll find that very few people believed in the spherical Earth. And that turned out to be false. People had all sorts of beliefs. Most people believed certain things several centuries ago. Certain types of medical remedies like leeches and bloodletting, and certain what you would probably call old wives' tales. They believed it. Everybody believed in these things, and yet we've now discovered that actually they were all false. So you can find examples where nearly everybody believed in something at a particular time, and which have now proven to be incorrect. So it fails. The argument from popularity basically fails, but we still see Christians and other Muslims coming on to atheist shows, or even on Christian channels, saying that there must be a God because so many people believe it. There simply must be a God, so I'm going to be a theist too, or I'm going to be a Muslim, or I'm going to be a Christian, because it couldn't be, surely it couldn't be that, say, 3 billion of the world's population, or 4 billion, believe in God, and yet it's false. How could so many people believe something, the vast majority, and yet it be incorrect? But I've already given some examples of where that has actually been the case. So this is an easy one to nail. If any theists try to tell you that, you know, so many people can't be wrong, that's the argument ad populum. There's also the other one which I referred to earlier, which is the respectability, the fact that many nations have actually taken on, say, Christianity as a state religion, that, you know, we're looking at more arguments from authority, that when I was young, I saw the headmaster, I saw the priest, and these were all authority figures. And I assume that because they believe it, it must be true. So there's another fallacy, argument from authority. So none of these things matter. The only thing that matters is the actual evidence which we can examine and decide whether something is actually, as much as you can determine it, objectively true. Okay, well, I don't know whether you've got anything to add to that, but thanks for watching, and look forward to seeing you again with another video soon.